FM Talk.
President, are another round of talks planned with Iran? And if so, will you send Vice President JD Vance with?
Well, he's done a good job, but Steve and Jared, they've all done a very good job. And I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly.
So President Trump speaking yesterday outside the White House about the potential for future talks with Iran. Trump is now signaling that new Iran talks are potentially imminent. They have said as early as Thursday of this week. So we will watch and we will wait and we will see what happens next. Let's get to our guest, our favorite, Jim Talent, former United States Senator from Missouri and former Congressman as well. Thank you so much, Senator, for being with us today to talk about this issue. It seems like it's ever evolving. We appreciate your voice on it.
Thank you, Annie. Did you really say I'm your favorite?
Yes.
I feel greatly complimented.
That Missouri Senate seat, man, it's been a very, very kind one to the people of Missouri and your neighbors on the Illinois side. We're grateful for you. What are your thoughts about President Trump's delegation he sent over to Pakistan? JD Vance comes back and says, nope, no deal. And then now it looks like maybe potentially talks taking place later this week even.
Yeah, well, I think, look, we had destroyed their center of gravity regarding military power, their capacity to generate and sustain military power, and specifically the missiles, the drones, what was left of the nuclear program, although evidently the president is concerned they have some enriched uranium somewhere. And so I think the president was checking in to see if their intentions had changed, to see, in essence, if that had broken their will. And the thing that would have signified it had was turning over the uranium. And evidently they made some offers. They tried to get us to accept, like, okay, we'll de-enrich a lot of it. We'll, do A, B, and C. But no, I mean, that was our goal, was they would have to end the program and prove to us they had ended the program. And they weren't in a very strong bargaining position. So it broke up, and now the president is going after their economic power. And I'll just add, Annie, I mean, he's being more merciful than I probably would be, because I might just have gone ahead and blown up their transportation and electricity infrastructure. But he's not doing that. He's just blockading the oil, which is where they get the vast proportion of their revenue. So I'm not surprised they want talks again.
Can you simplify for me what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, what Iran was doing? It seems like it's their biggest flex point, the biggest way that they can impact everybody else in the world with their control over the Strait of Hormuz. Can you talk about what Iran was doing and what Trump countered?
Yeah, sure. Well, again, they went to that alternative because we had destroyed their other means of deterring attacks on the regime through punishment. It's a strategy called deterrence by punishment. So they had all these missiles, they had the drones, they had the proxies, and so countries were afraid to attack them because they could retaliate in these ways. Well, then that was eliminated. So now they turn to their last weapon, which is to close the strait, hoping to inflict enough pain that everybody would have to back off and give them what they wanted. And, the problem is there's a lot of problems with doing that. One of them is it didn't do that. It's not the result of it isn't pleasant, but it's temporary and we can deal with it. And also it's a wasting asset for them because now you're seeing all the activity among the oil producing countries to find means to get oil to market other than going through the strait. So you see, this is the kind of, you use a tool like this and then you lose it. And so now what is happening in the strait? From what I can tell, we have blocked all ships coming out of the Iranian ports. I think that's pretty clear because CENTCOM has said that. There isn't any ship coming out of Iranian ports that is being permitted to pass. I have read reports that a number of other merchant ships are going through the strait. I don't want to say for certain that's true, but I would be surprised if the strait does not gradually open up over time because I think they know this gambit has failed. And it's also, of course, as long as we are closing the strait to their exports, it's really hurting countries that they cannot ignore, like China.
So I want to know about the geopolitical elements here involved with the strait. My understanding, which is very limited, Senator, about the Strait of Hormuz is it doesn't really control our access to oil because Trump is a drill baby drill president. So
Right.
the energy that we have is ours to use. And President Trump continues, what I hear, say, if you need oil, come get it from us. We'd love to sell you some oil.
Yeah.
If our interests in the Strait of Hormuz aren't because we require access to that oil, who does rely on the Strait of Hormuz for their energy production? And what are they doing to help get this issue cleared up?
Yeah, mostly Asia, including China, the Europeans to some degree. So the reason it affects us is because the market for oil is global. So if supply in some other part of the world is cut off, the law of supply and demand means that the price goes up. Now, if we were a closed market, I'll see if I can pronounce it, an autarkic market.
Sounds good enough for me.
we were not interacting with the rest of the world, then it probably would not affect us at all. But then again, we wouldn't be selling oil, et cetera. So, the president has said, we're producing a lot, come to us. And as I said, this is going to change purchasing and export patterns around the world, both because that's substantially a matter of habit, but also because this has created a sense of insecurity about the strait. So if you're in the oil business, you don't want insecurity. Well, if you buy it from the United States, it's secure. The sea lanes are secure. There's a lot of reasons, actually, to buy it from us. So intermediate term, that's why this was a mistake for the Iranians. Now, if eventually, I think we are already beginning to undertake action to clear the strait. At some point, I think that will happen, and I suspect there will be participation by Asian countries. But right now, I understand it. They don't want their warships to go into a war zone. Of course, if they're warships, you think they wouldn't mind that. They're probably hoping we'll do it on our own. And I'll add, Annie, that this is exposing something that has become increasingly clear in the last few years, which is that we have been acting, in effect, as a risk manager for other countries around the world, even though the risk to us was much less. And the Trump administration has had enough. And I don't blame them. I'll tell you, there are many people in the national security community, and have been and am very involved with them, who are reevaluating their sense of alliances, particularly NATO. I'm talking about old Reagan Republicans who are starting to see, you know what, maybe Trump and Vance and Rubio have a point with all of this.
Senator Jim Talent speaking with us. I heard President say, it seemed like it was brief, but he said President Xi wants to see the Strait of Hormuz opened and this to end as well. And it was just kind of a little drop in a press conference that implied that Trump and Xi of China are working things out in order to get to the end of this where they might agree on the solution and that they're on the same side. I don't know if I believe that entirely. What is President Trump doing and talking? I know they're supposed to meet in the next coming months, I guess. What is he trying to...
I don't know that President Trump believes that entirely either.
Yeah.
I think
is he putting him on the spot?
He's playing Xi a little bit. Look, my read, and I think this is a consensus read, is that for the rest of the year anyway, both China and the United States want a lull in tension between the two countries. We fought this mini trade war last year where we jacked up tariffs on them, and then they constricted the supply of rare earths, over which they have, unfortunately, almost absolute control, at least over the processing of it. And I think both sides said, we don't really want that to happen in the near future. So I think there's going to be a lull in tension, but I think both countries understand. In fact, there's no question. Trump and Xi, and indeed everybody in the national security establishments in both countries, understand that this competition, this sort of cold conflict between the United States and China is going to go on for some time, because they have ambitions for the region in particular and the world in general that are diametrically contradictory to our national security and our national security interests.
Senator Talent speaking with us right now. I am curious about your thoughts, your predictions maybe on the short-term pains that Americans are experiencing right now. The gas price is no joke. And, I know that when President Biden was in office and gas prices were around where they are right now, we were not seeing people, shaking fists at the sky about how high gas prices were. President Trump brought them down. Now they're back up again. Is this a short-term pains, long-term gains opportunity for the United States? Do you think that we'll be economically better off at the other side of this, or is your hope that we just get back to where we were?
I feel very strongly we're going to be better off for a whole host of reasons. One of them is reducing very substantially the risk level in the Middle East for years to come, and therefore reducing our burdens there. I think it is going to be very good for our energy market. I think it's going to be very good for other important goals for the United States, like, for example, you're seeing Hezbollah I don't know if it'll be destroyed, but very substantially degraded now. And Hezbollah is very active in the drug traffic. There's all kinds of ways the American people are going to benefit. Now, if you're asking me the political impact of this, I mean, I will speculate on that. It's almost unavoidable. But the real answer over the years is that the American people, when it comes time for an election, are going to judge whether their interests have been well served. And I'm not being naive or just saying this to flatter the people when I say over the years they have a lot of good common sense, and I've always understood the judgment they've made, even when they didn't vote for me. I mean, I got the reasons why. So I'm not – but, of course, one of the problems is so many people in Washington are unable and unwilling to see any of these issues through anything other than a political lens, and this is true on both sides. And so you got one side trying to use it for political purposes, the other side nervous about it. I honestly don't, this is not about politics. This is about eliminating a first-order threat to the United States. I mean, I will tell you, China is the greater danger in the long term, but the thing that worried me the most for years and years and years was Iran getting a nuclear weapon. If they get one and the means to deliver it, AEI did war game this. That's a think tank in Washington years ago. When I was with them, the chance that you're going to get a nuclear competition in the Middle East and a launch goes way, way up. And that is something. It's worth almost anything to prevent that, much less a short war where we suffer only a handful of casualties. I mean, one casualty is too many to deal with the problem. So I've fully supported this from the beginning. I'm willing to give the president a lot of running room in terms of his tactics because I think the strategy is exactly the right one.
Senator Talent, if I'm thinking about this, the American people always have the opportunity to change the strategy that's implemented in every single area of government because we have many elections. So if you don't like it, you can change it. And I want to know from you, in your estimation, if I guess 2028 is a little bit far away, but of course, if the Congress, the midterms were to go in a blue wave, which very well could happen in the middle of his second term, what is the Democrat policy alternative to what President Trump is doing? Because the majority of what we hear from Democrats is like, if Trump did it, we hate it. And that's just the end of it.
It's undeniable that basically is their policy. And I think it shows a lack of substance that they keep accusing him of like being an autocrat. There's a no kings kind of thing, which is ridiculous. Now, there has been a growth in presidential power relative to the Congress, which goes back several decades. It was true at least until Obama. And I think I've said to you, I don't really blame the presidents for this. I blame the Congress innervating itself, weakening itself, unwilling to exercise its authority to pass laws and pass appropriations bills. We're seeing this right now. And now I'm going to start ranting. The whole the whole constitutional setup assumes that the branches will check each other. So when you get one branch that is weakening itself, the other branches will aggregate more power, not just the executive, but the courts. So Trump is not what they claim he is, but they can't really look. His policies are to close the border, deport people who are here illegally, produce energy, stop crime, and go after America's adversaries. Those are not extreme policies. It's very similar to the policies of the Clinton administration, and I was there for that.
Yeah.
So what they do is, oh, he's a terrible human being. Well, he says things that he should not say, and we could go into that. They didn't. I do agree that this whole effort could have been explained better, although they did explain it, and they are explaining it now all the time. So now I'm going on to you. I should let you get a word in.
No.
It's your show, but I mean, it's,
you are my guest, and we are grateful for it. And I think what you're saying there too is the difference between good policy and good politics. Because for me, what the Democrats are consistently doing is it's easy to be anti-war politically when you're in the minority and just say, no war bad. And sometimes, if I listen to what President Trump is doing, he's trying to end a war that he says is a 47-year war. And you're talking about decades of the same threat existing and everybody understanding it and knowing it. And President Trump has the guts to go and say, well, let's do something to end it once and for all.
That's right. The other presidents kicked the can down the road is what they did.
Yeah.
Because the threat was not so imminent and so great that you absolutely couldn't ignore it. But I really think it's the essence of statesmanship to accurately estimate and recognize, in foreign policy I'm talking about, the threats to the country and to move effectively to diffuse them or eliminate them before they get to the level where stopping them requires some enormous sacrifice or some enormous risk. And we had a window to do it. Rubio's talked very eloquently about that. And Trump took the window. And I think he was... if you're not prepared to make decisions like that, you don't belong in his job. I mean, you just don't. And he's seeing it through. So I have a fair level of confidence. And by the way, I mean, you're right about people playing politics with war. Democrats were not out attacking Obama when he conducted a 7-month bombing campaign in Libya. I mean, I don't recall a whole lot of complaints. There were a few on their side, but not many.
Last question real quick before we let you go. We're speaking with Senator Jim Talent. When you look at President Trump, of course, at the head of it, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President JD Vance among the advisors, is this a good team leading this effort?
Yeah, I think so. I thought at the beginning of the administration that it was a strong foreign policy team. I think, and I also think it's a lot more united team than people believe. That's in part because I don't want people to think I'm bragging. I've actually read the national security strategy. That's an official document put out to guide all the national security agencies regarding the president's priorities. It is staffed up through what they call the interagency process, so everybody gets a shot at it. The factions that people say are restrainers or isolationists or more hawks, and they all got a shot at this. They all signed off on it. And it's basically, if you read it, you can see why we're doing what we're doing, not just in the Middle East, but in Venezuela, in Cuba, in Asia. There is a real policy that's being consistently followed. And I think it's a good team. It's united. But look, we talked about the people before. They're going to judge by results, and they're entitled to.
Yes.
I think this is going to work. I think it is working. I think we're already a lot safer than we were 6 weeks ago. But they've got to finish it out. And we're at the point now of some tactical maneuvering, less combat, and more using the tools of naval power here to punish them economically to see if we can't end this threat once and for all.
Senator Talent, thank you for the time today. We love hearing from you. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Okay, Annie, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Senator Jim Talent, former United States Senator from Missouri, also former Congressman, Chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council. We're going to take a break here. We're going to have a quick segment, and then we're going to speak with Senator Eric Schmitt. Big show today. We're so glad that you're here. You are our favorite